People think strength is loud. They think power means winning every argument, proving every point, defending every insult, and making sure everyone knows they were right. But what if everything you've been taught about strength is backwards? What if the people who seem to have the most control over your emotions are only powerful because you keep giving them your attention? Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing that the opinions that have controlled your decisions for years suddenly mean nothing. The criticism that once ruined your entire day becomes background noise. The people who ignored you, manipulated you, underestimated you, or betrayed you no longer have access to your peace. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? Yet this was the very secret practiced by some of the greatest minds in history. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire surrounded by betrayal, criticism, and endless pressure. Yet he discovered a simple truth that changed everything. The greatest victory is not defeating another person. It is refusing to let them conquer your mind. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you may never react to people the same way again, and one lesson near the end has transformed countless lives simply because almost nobody understands it. There was once a young man who desperately wanted to be respected. Every morning, he checked his phone, hoping someone had finally replied to his messages. Every notification made his heart race. Every ignored text felt like rejection. Every criticism echoed in his mind long after the conversation had ended. He spent hours replaying arguments, imagining better responses, wishing he had said something different. His happiness depended entirely on how other people treated him. If someone complimented him, he felt unstoppable. If someone ignored him, he questioned his worth. Without realizing it, he had handed strangers the keys to his emotional life. One evening after another disappointing day, he met an elderly man sitting quietly on a park bench watching the sunset. The old man noticed the frustration written across his face and asked a simple question. "Why are you carrying people who would never carry you?" The young man was confused. He began talking about betrayal, disrespect, and people who never appreciated him. The old man listened patiently, then smiled. "You believe your suffering comes from what they did, but your suffering comes from refusing to let go of them." Those words hit harder than any insult the young man had ever received, because deep down, he knew they were true. Most people spend their entire lives chasing approval from people who never intended to give it. They waste years trying to explain themselves to those determined to misunderstand them. They lose sleep thinking about people who have already forgotten the conversation. The tragedy is not that others ignore us. The tragedy is that we ignore ourselves while waiting for someone else's attention. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than almost anyone. As emperor, he faced constant criticism, political enemies, and people who questioned every decision he made. Imagine carrying the weight of an entire empire while hearing endless complaints every single day. Yet instead of trying to silence every critic, he wrote something remarkable in his private journal. He reminded himself that another person's opinion cannot damage your character unless you allow it. Your peace is not taken from you. It is surrendered one reaction at a time. Think about that for a moment. Every time someone insults you and you replay it for hours, they are no longer speaking. You are speaking for them. Every time someone rejects you and you convince yourself you are not enough, you become the author of your own suffering. The event ended long ago, but your mind refuses to leave the battlefield. Modern psychology quietly confirms what the Stoics discovered nearly 2,000 years ago. The brain is designed to remember negative experiences more intensely than positive ones. One insult can outweigh 10 compliments because your mind believes paying attention to threats increases survival. This helped our ancestors avoid danger, but today it traps millions of people inside emotional prisons, built from social rejection, criticism, and imagined judgment. That is why ignoring people is not about pretending they do not exist. It is about refusing to reward negativity with your most valuable resource, which is your attention. Attention is your life. Wherever your attention goes, your emotions follow. Wherever your emotions go, your future follows. People fight desperately for your attention because attention is power. Social media companies understand this. Advertisers understand this. Manipulative people understand this. The only person who often forgets it is you. Imagine carrying a bucket of water through a desert. Every stranger asks for a little. Some deserve it. Others simply take it because you cannot say no. By the end of the journey, you collapse from thirst while everyone else continues walking. Your attention works exactly the same way. Every unnecessary argument, every pointless debate, every jealous person, every toxic relationship quietly drains the energy you needed to build your own life. Seneca warned that people suffer more in imagination than in reality. Think about how often you invent conversations that never happen. You imagine what someone meant by a message. You create entire stories from a delayed reply. You convince yourself someone secretly dislikes you because they looked away during a conversation. Hours of emotional energy disappear, chasing ghosts that exist only inside your own mind. Have you ever noticed how confident people rarely explain themselves? They do not rush to defend every rumor. They do not panic when misunderstood. They understand something most people never learn. The more desperately you seek validation, the less valuable you appear. Confidence does not beg to be recognized. It quietly exists. This is why silence unsettles people. When someone expects you to react and you remain calm, they suddenly lose control of the situation. Not because silence is manipulation, but because emotional independence cannot be manipulated. The person who cannot be emotionally provoked becomes incredibly difficult to control. There is an old story about Epictetus, who began life as a slave. Imagine living in a world where someone else owned your body. If anyone had reason to hate people, it was him. Yet instead of allowing bitterness to consume him, he discovered a freedom that no master could steal. He taught that while others may control your circumstances, they can never control your judgment unless you willingly hand it over. That lesson turned a former slave into one of history's greatest philosophers. Physical chains disappeared long ago, but emotional chains still imprison millions. Today, those chains often look different. They appear as constant comparison. They appear as checking whether someone viewed your story. They appear as refreshing your inbox, hoping for a reply. They appear as obsessing over likes, comments, and approval. Technology changed, but human nature remained the same. We still confuse attention with love and validation with self-worth. Have you ever wondered why rejection hurts so much? It is not because another person rejected you. It is because rejection challenges the identity you secretly created. If you believe your value depends on being accepted, then every rejection feels like proof that something is wrong with you. But what if rejection is simply redirection? What if every person walking away creates space for someone or something better, aligned with your future? History is filled with people who were ignored before they were admired. Inventors, artists, leaders, and visionaries were often dismissed by those who later celebrated them. If they had stopped every time someone doubted them, the world would never have known their names. Their greatest advantage was not talent. It was their refusal to let temporary opinions become permanent identities. Think about your own life. How many dreams have you delayed because you feared judgment? How many opportunities disappeared because you worried what people might think? How many conversations never happened because you imagined rejection before giving yourself a chance? In many cases, the prison door was never locked. Fear simply convinced you not to leave. One businessman spent years trying to impress colleagues who constantly criticized his work. He worked longer hours, volunteered for every project, and sacrificed weekends hoping they would finally respect him. Nothing changed. The criticism continued. Exhausted and burned out, he finally quit and started his own company. For the first time, he focused on serving customers instead of pleasing critics. Within a few years, the same people who mocked him were asking how he became so successful. His life changed the moment he stopped chasing approval from people committed to withholding it. There is something strangely attractive about people who are emotionally unavailable to negativity. Not emotionally cold, not arrogant, simply unavailable. They do not carry yesterday's insults into today's opportunities. They do not allow random opinions to define lifelong decisions. They understand that protecting inner peace is not selfish. It is necessary. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that every person acts according to what they believe is good, even when they are wrong. This changes everything because it allows compassion without surrender. When someone insults you, they reveal more about their internal world than yours. Angry people spread anger. Insecure people project insecurity. Jealous people search for reasons to criticize. Their behavior is information, not instruction. Imagine standing beside a muddy river after heavy rain. Someone scoops up a bucket of dirty water and throws it toward you. Would you become angry at the river for being muddy, or would you recognize that muddy water can only produce more mud? Emotionally unhealthy people behave the same way. Expecting wisdom from bitterness is like expecting clear water from mud. But here is where many people misunderstand Stoicism. Ignoring people does not mean allowing abuse. It does not mean becoming passive or accepting disrespect. It means choosing your response instead of surrendering it. Sometimes strength means walking away. Sometimes strength means setting boundaries. Sometimes strength means saying nothing because your peace is worth more than winning an argument that changes nothing. The strongest tree in the forest does not waste energy arguing with every storm. It simply grows deeper roots. Every challenge strengthens what cannot be seen. Human beings are no different. Every insult, every betrayal, every disappointment offers a choice. Become weaker through resentment or become stronger through discipline. Most people never notice this choice because they react automatically. Someone criticizes them and they instantly defend themselves. Someone ignores them and they instantly chase attention. Someone betrays them and they instantly seek revenge. Automatic reactions create predictable lives. Conscious responses create powerful lives. The question is not whether people will disappoint you. They will. The question is whether every disappointment deserves permanent residence inside your mind. That answer determines the quality of your future far more than the actions of anyone around you. And there is one hidden habit practiced by history's strongest minds that transforms emotional pain into unshakable confidence. It seems almost too simple to matter, yet once you understand it, you will never look at criticism, rejection, or silence the same way again. That lesson changes everything. Most people believe confidence comes after success. They think once they earn more money, build the perfect body, gain enough followers, or finally receive the respect they deserve, then confidence will naturally appear. But the Stoics believed the opposite. Confidence begins the moment you stop negotiating your worth with people who never had the authority to measure it in the first place. Imagine a man walking through a crowded city carrying a priceless diamond in his pocket. As he passes strangers, some laugh at him, others call him poor. A few insist he has nothing valuable at all. If the man truly knows what he carries, he smiles and keeps walking. He does not empty his pocket every 5 minutes trying to convince everyone they are wrong. Only someone uncertain about the diamond would constantly seek approval from strangers. Your character is that diamond. The problem is that most people have never looked inside their own pocket. They spend their lives asking everyone else to tell them who they are. They ask relationships, they ask careers, they ask social media, they ask critics, they ask family, they ask complete strangers. Every opinion becomes another mirror, and before long they forget what their own reflection looks like. This is why ignoring people is one of the greatest acts of self-respect. It is the decision to stop outsourcing your identity. There was a woman who spent years trying to make everyone happy. At work, she accepted every extra responsibility because she feared disappointing her boss. At home, she constantly apologized, even when she had done nothing wrong. Among friends, she laughed at jokes she did not find funny, just to avoid conflict. Everyone described her as kind, generous, and dependable. Yet every night she cried herself to sleep, because somewhere along the way, she had disappeared. One afternoon, she visited her grandmother, who had lived through war, poverty, heartbreak, and loss. The old woman listened quietly before asking one unforgettable question. Who is taking care of the person who takes care of everyone else? The room fell silent. For the first time, she realized she had spent years earning love by abandoning herself. That single realization changed everything. She stopped saying yes when she meant no. She stopped explaining every decision. She stopped apologizing for existing. Some people became angry. Others called her selfish. A few disappeared completely. But something extraordinary happened. Peace arrived where anxiety had lived for years. This is one of life's strangest paradoxes. The moment you stop trying to keep everyone in your life, some people leave. Those who only valued your obedience disappear. Those who truly value your character stay. Loss becomes clarity. Seneca believed we should regularly examine our own thoughts, because the greatest battles are fought inside the mind long before they appear in the world. Think about your own internal dialogue. How often does it sound like your own voice? And how often does it sound like the criticism you have absorbed from other people? Maybe someone once told you that you were not smart enough. Maybe someone laughed at your dream. Maybe someone compared you to another person until you believed you would never be enough. Years passed. The people may have disappeared, but their voices stayed. Now, every challenge awakens those old memories. Every opportunity is interrupted by invisible critics living rent-free inside your head. This is why emotional freedom requires more than ignoring people physically. You must stop replaying them mentally. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Read that again. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If your thoughts are filled with resentment, your life slowly becomes resentment. If your thoughts are filled with fear, your world begins shrinking around that fear. If your thoughts are filled with purpose, discipline, and gratitude, everything starts changing from the inside out. Your outer life eventually follows your inner conversations. This explains why two people can experience the same betrayal, yet build completely different futures. One spends years seeking revenge. The other spends years building a better life. One remains emotionally attached to the past. The other quietly moves beyond it. The betrayal was identical. The response created two completely different destinies. There is an old saying that the best revenge is success. The Stoics would go even further. The best revenge is indifference, not fake indifference, not pretending you do not care while secretly checking their social media every night. Real indifference, the kind that comes when your future becomes more important than your past. That level of freedom terrifies people because they can no longer predict your behavior. Manipulation depends on emotional access. The moment someone realizes they can no longer provoke you, they lose their greatest weapon. Think about every toxic relationship you have ever seen. It almost always follows the same pattern. One person creates drama. The other reacts emotionally. Drama creates another reaction. The cycle continues. Now imagine removing one ingredient. Imagine one person remains calm. No chasing, no begging, no emotional explosions. The cycle collapses. Conflict starves without participation. This does not mean becoming emotionless. It means becoming emotionally disciplined. There is a huge difference. Discipline allows you to feel everything without becoming controlled by anything. You still experience disappointment. You still feel sadness. You still recognize betrayal. But those emotions no longer become your identity. They become temporary visitors instead of permanent residents. Epictetus often reminded his students that events themselves are neutral. It is our judgment that creates suffering. Imagine receiving an unexpected message saying someone has been talking negatively about you. Immediately, your heart begins racing. Your imagination fills in missing details. You picture conversations. You assume everyone believes the rumors. You feel embarrassed, angry, anxious. Hours later, you discover the story was completely false. Notice something remarkable. Your body experienced real stress over something that never happened. The suffering came from interpretation, not reality. How many times has this happened throughout your life? How many nights have you lost sleep over imaginary disasters? How many relationships have been damaged by assumptions? How many dreams have been abandoned because fear convinced you failure was already guaranteed? Your mind is incredibly powerful, which is exactly why it must be carefully protected. People often ask why successful individuals seem so calm under pressure. The answer is rarely that they experience less stress. It is that they have learned where to place their attention. When everyone else focuses on opinions, they focus on purpose. When everyone else focuses on criticism, they focus on improvement. When everyone else focuses on drama, they focus on progress. Focus determines emotional direction. There was once an archer preparing for an important competition. His teacher placed a small wooden target far across the field. Just before releasing the arrow, several people began shouting insults from behind him. Some laughed, others questioned his abilities, a few deliberately tried distracting him. The young archer became furious. He turned around and argued with every single person. By the time he faced the target again, his hands were shaking. His concentration was gone. His arrow completely missed. The teacher calmly walked beside him and asked one question. Did the target move? The student looked confused. No. Then why did you? That question contains one of the greatest Stoic lessons ever taught. Your goals rarely disappear. Your attention does. Every distraction pulls you farther away from the life you claim to want. The world is filled with distractions competing for your emotional energy because distracted people are easier to control than focused people. Think about your daily routine. How much of your day belongs to you? How much belongs to notifications, arguments, news, social media, comparison, office, gossip, random opinions, celebrity drama, people who add nothing to your future? 1 hour becomes another. One day becomes another year. Eventually, people wake up wondering where their life went. The answer is painfully simple. It was traded away one distraction at a time. The Stoics understood that attention is not merely concentration. Attention is life itself. Whatever consistently receives your attention eventually shapes your character. Feed your mind with negativity, and negativity becomes familiar. Feed it with wisdom, and wisdom becomes natural. Feed it with discipline, and discipline slowly becomes your identity. This is why choosing what to ignore is just as important as choosing what to pursue. Most people create endless to-do lists. Very few create stop-doing lists. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Stop chasing those who repeatedly walk away. Stop defending your character before those determined to doubt it. Stop revisiting conversations that cannot be changed. Stop asking why someone failed to appreciate your value. The answer changes nothing. Your future is waiting while your attention remains trapped in yesterday. There is another truth that many people spend decades avoiding. Sometimes the hardest person to ignore is not someone outside you. It is the older version of yourself, the insecure version, the fearful version, the version still seeking permission to become who you were meant to be. Every day you must decide which voice deserves your attention, the voice of fear or the voice of purpose, because they cannot both lead your life. There comes a moment when every strong person quietly realizes something extraordinary. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone deserves explanations. Not everyone deserves another chance. Boundaries are not walls built to keep love away. They are gates protecting what is valuable. A castle without gates is not welcoming. It is defenseless. Your peace deserves protection. Your time deserves protection. Your energy deserves protection. Your future deserves protection. And once you truly understand the hidden cost of giving everyone unlimited access to your emotions, you begin living differently. But there is one final, Stoic secret that separates those who merely survive criticism from those who become completely untouchable. It is the lesson Marcus Aurelius returned to again and again during the darkest moments of his life. Once you understand it, people may still speak about you, they may still ignore you, they may still betray you, but they will never again possess the power to disturb your inner world. The final secret is surprisingly simple, yet almost nobody truly lives by it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself over and over that one day both he and every person criticizing him would be gone. Every insult, every rumor, every argument, every misunderstanding, every victory and every failure would disappear into history. At first, that thought sounds depressing, but when understood correctly, it becomes one of the most liberating ideas a human being can ever discover. Think about someone who embarrassed you 10 years ago. At the time, it probably felt like the end of the world. You replayed it endlessly. You imagined everyone remembered it. Yet today, chances are almost nobody even thinks about it. The moment that once controlled your emotions has faded into nothing. The only reason it stayed alive for so long was because you kept feeding it with your attention. Now imagine looking at your current worries from the perspective of your future self 10 years from now. Will that rude comment matter? Will that social media post matter? Will the stranger's opinion matter? Will the co-worker who underestimated you matter? Most likely not. Yet today, they occupy precious space inside your mind. This is exactly why the Stoics practiced what is often called the view from above. They imagined looking down at the world from a great height. Cities became tiny, crowds became invisible, arguments disappeared. Human pride suddenly looked incredibly small. Problems that seemed enormous became temporary moments in an endless flow of time. When you learn to see life this way, something remarkable happens. You stop treating every inconvenience like a catastrophe. You stop believing every criticism deserves a response. You stop carrying emotional burdens that were never yours to begin with. There was once a sculptor whose work was constantly criticized. Every new statue attracted people who mocked the details, questioned his talent, or insisted they could have done better. At first he argued with every critic. He explained every artistic choice. He defended every decision. But the more he argued, the more exhausted he became. One day an older artist visited his workshop and quietly watched him work. After several hours, the old man asked, "Who are you making this statue for?" "The people," the sculptor answered. The old man shook his head. "Then it will never be finished." The sculptor looked confused. The old man continued, "If you create for applause, criticism will destroy you. If you create from purpose, applause and criticism become equally powerless." Those words changed the sculptor forever. He stopped creating to impress. He started creating to express excellence. Ironically, his greatest work appeared only after he stopped worrying about how it would be received. That lesson reaches far beyond art. It applies to your career, your relationships, your business, your dreams. If your happiness depends on applause, your peace disappears the moment applause stops. But if your happiness depends on becoming the best version of yourself, nobody can steal it. This is why truly confident people often seem mysterious. They are not hiding secrets. They simply stopped seeking permission. Most people spend years asking questions that keep them trapped. Why don't they appreciate me? Why did they leave? Why did they betray me? Why do they ignore me? The wiser question is completely different. Why am I giving someone else the authority to determine my peace? That single question changes everything. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with rocks. Each rock has someone's name written on it. One rock represents an old relationship. Another represents a former friend. Another represents a family argument. Another represents online criticism. Another represents a mistake you made years ago. Every day you complain that life feels heavy, yet you never realize you are the one choosing to carry the backpack. One by one, you can place those rocks on the ground, not because they never mattered, but because they no longer deserve your energy. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. People think forgiveness means pretending nothing happened. The Stoics viewed it differently. Forgiveness is refusing to allow yesterday's pain to continue controlling today's decisions. Sometimes you forgive without receiving an apology. Sometimes you heal while the other person never changes. Your healing was never dependent on their behavior. It depended on your willingness to reclaim ownership of your own mind. There is enormous freedom in accepting that some questions will never be answered. Some people will leave without explanation. Some friendships will quietly fade. Some opportunities will disappear. Some people will misunderstand you forever. Not everything requires closure. Sometimes peace begins where the search for explanations ends. Epictetus taught that we should concern ourselves only with what lies within our control. Think about how much energy disappears every day worrying about things outside your control. You cannot control what someone says about you. You cannot control whether someone appreciates your kindness. You cannot control whether another person chooses honesty or betrayal. But you can control your integrity, your discipline, your habits, your response, your focus, your next decision. That is where real power lives. Imagine two fires burning side by side. One fire burns everything around it. The other provides warmth and light. Both contain the same energy. The difference is direction. Human emotion works exactly the same way. Anger directed toward revenge destroys. Anger transformed into discipline builds. Loneliness transformed into self-discovery creates wisdom. Rejection transformed into motivation creates excellence. Pain itself is not your enemy. Misused pain is. Some of the strongest people you admire today were once completely overlooked. They were rejected, ignored, mocked, laughed at. The difference is they refused to let temporary treatment become permanent identity. They understood something most people never learn. Other people's opinions are reports, not verdicts. Someone calling you incapable does not make you incapable. Someone doubting your dream does not make your dream impossible. Someone leaving your life does not reduce your value. Their opinion belongs to them. Your character belongs to you. Marcus Aurelius spent years leading an empire through war, plague, and political betrayal. Yet even during unimaginable pressure, he continued reminding himself that the quality of his mind mattered more than the chaos around him. External events constantly changed. His responsibility remained the same: protect the inner citadel. That image is unforgettable. Imagine your mind as an ancient fortress standing high above the storm. Rain falls, thunder crashes, enemies gather outside the walls. But inside the fortress there is calm, there is order, there is wisdom, there is discipline. Choice, self-mastery. The strongest people are not those who never feel pain. They are those who refuse to surrender leadership of their lives to pain. Imagine waking up tomorrow with one simple decision. No longer chasing people who repeatedly walk away. No longer explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. No longer sacrificing your peace for temporary approval. No longer measuring your worth by someone else's attention. How different would your life become after 1 month? 1 year? 5 years? Most transformations never begin with dramatic events. They begin with quiet decisions repeated every single day. The decision to remain calm instead of reacting. The decision to improve instead of complaining. The decision to build instead of proving. The decision to move forward instead of looking back. Eventually, those small decisions become character. Character becomes destiny, and one day, people look at your confidence and assume you were born that way. They never see the thousands of silent battles you fought alone. The nights you chose discipline over despair. The mornings you kept moving despite disappointment. The moments you stayed silent when your ego demanded revenge. That is real strength, not dominating others, mastering yourself. As Marcus Aurelius would remind us, you always possess one final freedom that nobody can take away. The freedom to choose your response. Protect that freedom. Guard it more carefully than money, more carefully than reputation, more carefully than success itself. Because once your mind belongs to you again, the world loses its power to control you. The people who ignored you become teachers. The people who betrayed you become lessons. The people who doubted you become motivation. And the person you become, because of those experiences, is stronger than the person who existed before them. So the next time someone disrespects you, ignores you, criticizes you, or tries to provoke you, pause before reacting. Ask yourself one question. Is this worth giving away my peace? Most of the time, the answer will be no. That single moment of awareness may become the turning point that changes the rest of your life. If this message challenged the way you think, don't let it end here. Write "I choose peace over reaction" in the comments to make a commitment not to anyone else, but to yourself. Every comment strengthens a community of people choosing discipline over drama and wisdom over impulse. If you found value in these Stoic lessons inspired by Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, subscribe for more videos that help you build mental strength, emotional resilience, and unshakable self-control. Share this video with someone who needs this reminder today. And remember, the strongest person in the room is rarely the loudest. It is the one who has mastered the only thing that truly matters, their own mind.